Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today's video is going to be a little bit different than what we normally do on the channel, but I've been seeing questions recently pop up a lot on social media about teaching kids with ADHD and related disorders. When looking to martial arts, it would be natural for us to find that we have a higher percentage of our students that have things like ADHD, ODD, and other related behavioral issues. It's natural for parents when they see behaviors that are associated with these conditions to look towards martial arts to help. So today, I'd really like to talk to you guys about ADHD. There's a lot of coaches out there, there's a lot of general population out there who feel like it's just a moral failing, which it's not, or it's a parental failing. Also, it's not. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder, okay? It is a disorder of self-regulation. The kids know what they should be doing, but they're unable to do it. This will affect their attention. It'll affect activity levels with hyperactivity, and it can also affect emotional regulation. So when we're teaching kids with ADHD, we need to be aware of this and how we can help them to succeed and thrive in this environment. I have experience teaching kids with ADHD. I myself have ADHD. I've learned a lot in the last few years, especially on what works in teaching kids and what works on how I learn myself. But that being said, I'm not necessarily an expert. This is my experience on what's worked for me. The first tip I'm going to give you is that you need to get to know these kids really well, okay? They will all have different things that will trigger their frustration, that will emotionally dysregulate them. And if you can catch those things early and cut them off, then it will make things so much easier than trying to calm them down after they're already emotionally dysregulated. You can help them to be able to regulate that emotion and keep pushing through the frustration, or to cut it off and go, okay, a change needs to be made here. As you get to know the kids, you'll build a certain level of trust that if they are feeling emotionally dysregulated, if they are feeling incredibly frustrated with something, that they'll be more likely to come and tell you if they can't handle it themselves, right? They will learn how to handle this themselves, but if they can't, as you build the level of trust, they'll come to you and go, hey, I need to change partners. I can't handle this right now. Or, you know, instead of them just trying to push through like they think you want, and then losing control of their emotions. When you're dealing with kids who have ADHD and even other related disorders, you have to be meeting them where they're at, right? If you have, say, a 10-year-old, and you would expect 10-year-olds to be at this level, you may need to meet them here to be able to then bring them up. You can't just expect that they are going to meet societal expectations of what a 10-year-old is. They may be socially and emotionally somewhat behind their peers, right? So you need to keep this in mind so that you meet them where they're at and not try to bring them to where you think they should be, because that's just going to increase the frustration level. And if we want them to keep with the martial arts and get better at dealing with the frustration, you have to start where they are, not expect them to start where you think they should be. The next point that I have for you can sound kind of shocking if you've never heard it before. But kids with ADHD, by the time that they hit age 12, on average, have received 20,000 more corrections than a child who does not have ADHD. Now, when you think about it, between parents and teachers and coaches getting corrected on your behavior 20,000 extra times by the time that you are 12 years old, that can be pretty tough. So I try in my classes to emphasize the positive, right? Instead of going up to them, oh, you're doing that wrong. Be like, you're trying really hard. Can I help you with that? Right? Something along those lines, something of, emphasizing what they're doing right. And then, offering to help them. Okay? Let me help you with that. When you're teaching somebody who has ADHD, you need to keep the lectures short. Okay? The demonstrations, everything needs to be as short as possible. You need to be clear and concise, but not long. They will start to fidget. They will be watching you, and the longer it's going to take for you to say what you need to say, the more that their brain is going to wander to something else. They may be looking at you, and they may seem like they're paying attention, but their mind is going to start to wander and think about other things. Think about supper afterwards. Think about the friend that they were playing with beforehand, right? So then you'll go and you'll try to practice what you've just demonstrated, and they have no idea because it just took too long. You need to be clear and concise and to the point, and then get them to do what they've just learned. So inevitably, there are going to be issues that need to be addressed. When you're doing this, it's really best not to do it in front of the class. Imagine these 20,000 corrections and how many of them have been a teacher yelling across the room for them to pay attention. And then all of a sudden the whole class is looking at them, right? It can really destroy your self-esteem pretty quickly, and it's humiliating. When you have issues with these kids, when you have problems that need to be corrected, it really needs to be dealt with one-on-one in private. And it doesn't mean to take them away from the whole class or whatever, but to pull them aside and talk to them. If other kids run up on you telling them to go, you're speaking to somebody privately, right? It's not going to help anybody, and it's definitely not going to help them if you are shouting across the class and pointing them out in front of everybody. When you do have something serious that you need to talk to these kids about, you need to remember to remain calm, right? They will mimic your emotional state. So if you become elevated and you're yelling and talking to them in that tone, then they're going to start to get elevated as well. So I always make sure that if I'm talking to them, any child, really, not just with ADHD, but it's especially important there. When I'm talking to them about something serious, I come down and talk to them at eye level. Don't tower over them, right? Lower that tone a little bit, and a little bit slower than you might talk in a normal, at a normal pace. And then make sure that you keep very calm, right? If they start to tick upwards, you can help them to calm back down, taking a couple of breaths. Take a deep breath, right? And you may have to do this with them. But you have to remember that if you get elevated, they're going to get elevated too. So you have to check your own emotional state, and as well, try and watch out for your facial expressions. They will pick up on it. All in all, it can be very challenging to teach kids that have ADHD or ODD or any multitude of behavioral issues. But when it comes to it, exercise is very good for them. So whatever we can do to help, I feel like we should be doing it. Exercise helps to regulate the dopamine and norepinephrine levels in the brain. So it's a very natural way to help relieve some of these ADHD symptoms that can be showing up. My feeling is that we should be doing whatever we can to help every child in our class succeed.